We're talking NASCAR F1 on Prime Sports Network and Mystery Caution here on YouTube. Greg DePalma, of course, along with CJ Radune from RotoWire. CJ, one playoff race in the books, and one more coming up for round number 1, or I guess you can call it round of 16. So Joey Logano, big surprise. A Ford wins, and Joey Logano, we talked about, would be a really good futures sleeper in the championship race. Gets off to a win. What'd you think about the race?
I thought it was a pretty good race. I like what Atlanta has become. It's kind of a faster, narrower Daytona. I like how the cars are bunched up, but I wonder still, is it predictable? I think we both highlighted all 3 Penske cars as being the ones to beat, and Joey Logano being certainly one of the best, if not Blaney. So I'd like to see a little bit more competitiveness maybe between the drivers. I think it was pretty predictable, but overall, moving in the right direction. I like the way that they were racing at Atlanta on Sunday.
Yeah, and Daniel Suarez just I mean, he loves Atlanta. I mean, this is now what, 2-1-2, I think, for Suarez. And you know, if he would have had, I don't know, let's see. Well, then again, I shouldn't say that. I mean, he just, I think what happened is you had Logano just had like the best super speedway driver behind him pushing him, and and they're driving a Ford, so it was really tough for Suarez, who had a very good car.
Yeah, I think also I noticed on the overtime restart that at one point whoever was, I forget who was pushing Suarez, but whoever that was fell significantly further back.
Yes.
And to your point, Ryan Blaney sucked right up and stayed tied right to Logano's bumper, and that clearly made the difference. That left Logano out front. It gave him the opportunity to just kind of defend on that last lap, and that was it, said and done. Once I saw that happening, once I saw that second car in line on the bottom lane, I think it was backing up, I just knew it was Logano's race at that point.
Yeah, wasn't that his teammate?
Yeah, was that
Chastain?
Chastain? Yeah, I think it
believe it was. But yeah, he just really fell back. Well, I mean, he didn't even finish in the top 10. That's how it worked out for him. But yeah, Suarez was strong. Matter of fact, I thought Cindric was really strong, but they had that bad. Once they lost all those spots on pit road, they never got back.
Yeah, exactly right. And Atlanta is very much a track position track, despite the fact that it's super speedway. It's not as wide as Daytona or Talladega, where you can make your way through the field. And I think that's exactly what happened to Cindric. You've got to maintain that track position. Yes, you can qualify, say, in the top 15 at Atlanta, but it's not like Daytona or Talladega where you can just throw qualifying completely out the window. So track position, a better track position toward the end for Cindric certainly would have served him well, because I do think that he had the best car throughout the majority of the day.
And as far as the playoffs are concerned, look who's back in first. Actually, is this? I always have to double check with the real points. Is Blaney in first?
Blaney is in first, 2,071. Second would be Christopher Bell.
Hey, there you go.
Yep.
I like that. Last year's champ and this year's predicted champ. I like the way that's working out. And Reddick, so he's still in good shape with a strong 6th. Byron in good shape. Logano's got the win. Bowman's in good shape. Matter of fact, the ones that are not in good shape, even though it's just one race and even though it's Atlanta, but Kyle Larson, wow, he's already in 10th. After that, what a surprise. Kyle Larson has a bad go of it at a super speedway. And Denny Hamlin, boy, I don't know what happened to their car this weekend. No explanation. Did you get any?
Yeah, I did actually. So I felt terrible for Larson because we got that comment, that question. Just a terrible trio of drivers to pick from. Both of us went for Larson, but we both knew that it was going to be a crash ultimately in his future. Sure enough, that's the way it turned out. So sorry there. Wasn't unexpected though. But Hamlin, yeah, he made the point of driving a conservative race. He stayed at the back. And like I said before, track position and being able to move through the field is more difficult at Atlanta. And Hamlin ultimately gave up stage points in the first and second stages to stay out of potential trouble. He moved his way pretty far forward by the end, but he got caught up in that last lap crash as he was trying to move forward through traffic, and he never got his way up to the front. I think somebody like an Alex Bowman, who played their strategy throughout the day a little bit more aggressively and said, I'm going to race up at the front all day, and I'm going to let the cards fall where they do, ended up with a better result. I think Denny Hamlin and his strategy was just wrong for Atlanta. They didn't have the car that could move up fast enough, and at the end of the day, they ended up getting caught in the last lap crash anyway.
Yeah, actually, I should let me put my right.
Yes. There you go.
Maybe going to say 2024 next year. So wait. So you're saying that you think this was strategy then for Denny Hamlin, that they didn't really care about where they qualified as well because they were the slowest in qualifying? So, or was it because they qualified so poorly that they just changed their strategy and said, well, this is our strategy for today?
I don't know if they changed their strategy or not, or if they just gave up on track position from the beginning, but it was very clear throughout a number of the radio calls that they played, and even from some of the interviews afterward, that they took a conservative approach, that Hamlin just tried to stay out of the mix and didn't want to get caught up in an early crash, exactly like what happened to Kyle Larson. And that, he gave up stage points and then ultimately got caught in a crash on the last lap when you had 30 some cars that were still on the lead lap on the last lap. So he just, tumbled down the order, didn't get any points really he got no points from the stages, and then didn't really get any points from the race finish because of the crash. So he just basically shot themselves in the foot. It was just the wrong approach for the day.
And hey, no big surprise, I guess, the way he's driving right now, but the only non-playoff driver in the top 10 was Kyle Busch. So Kyle Busch finishing 7th in Atlanta, but really he's just trying to win, that's all. So as far as the veteran drivers that are definitely championship contenders, you got Larson, Hamlin, Keselowski, and Truex. Those are the big losers on Sunday. Briscoe, boy, that was tough to see him get into an incident after what happened last week to get in. He's in big trouble already, as is Martin Truex Jr. and Harrison Burton. Okay, so let's now talk about this week, and that is we have a road course for the first time in a while, unless you want to count the street course. So we've only had 2 to this point, and those are Sonoma and Coda. So we're going to go through those. We can also just pop in Chicago along the way. And this is when we get to see Van Gisbergen again, right? He's racing again, correct? So,
correct.
And let's see. So, let me put this there. So let's take a look at the odds. So let's see, where are we? Odds. There we go.
I know who's first.
Yeah. Big surprise, right?
This one's not going to be hard either.
So there's the 3. Actually, pretty much the same, with Kyle, the very short favorite. Keep in mind that 12 of the last 13 winners at Watkins Glen have started in the top 3 rows, including 6 straight in the top 2 rows, even though we've only had 1 pole sitter during that time. Last pole sitter that won before Chase Elliott in 2019 was Kyle Busch in 2008. But the fact is, you want to start up front. That's not a surprise for a road course. Chevy's won 5 straight. Ford has not won in the last 7. So completely different scenario than what we had last week. Matter of fact, it was crazy going over the starting lineup last week and seeing no Toyotas in the top 19. I mean, that was crazy. I mean, that's just, yeah.
Usually they have the 1 lap speed at the super speedways, so that was a little bit different, but just for whatever reason with their body style, they've not been able to draft well together recently, and Ford's got it nailed down. Chevrolets tend to be more prone to crashing, which is why, on the super speedways, Fords end up having the advantage.
Okay, so let's go through. So we got Lars. So here's the 3, and as we go through them, I've got my road course stats, career road course stats handy with me. So let's see. Larson, he has 5 wins, including 2 in Watkins Glen and over 31 races. This year, he's got a win at Sonoma. So he's coming off the win at Sonoma, 17th at Coda. Byron, meanwhile, taking a look at Byron, he is coming in with just 2 wins, but still, that's pretty solid for road course driving. 1 win at Watkins Glen. He was first at Coda this year, did not perform as well at Sonoma. And Van Gisbergen, he's coming in here with, and again, as far as the race at Chicago, of course, we know what happened there. He was the heavy favorite, which was just crazy how heavy of a favorite he was. And, of course, it was a little slick. He finished 40th, but he was also just 20th at Coda. Yeah, I don't believe he was at Sonoma. So, yeah, to me, it's easy. I'm not taking Van Gisbergen, so he can get out of there. Byron, I'm not saying he's not capable of winning, but no way am I putting money. We've talked about this plenty of times on a driver that's part-time with the same odds as these guys. So, I mean, Larson or Byron, who do you like better?
Before I answer that, did you notice anything unique about all of the road course races this year, as well as all of the road course winners at Watkins Glen that were Chevrolets?
Did I notice something about the Chevrolet winners?
Yes.
Why, were they all Hendrick drivers?
All of them at Watkins Glen, all the past 5, I think,
Chevrolet
Watkins Glen were Hendrick drivers. All 3 road courses this year, including the Chicago Street Race, are Hendrick Chevrolets.
Interesting. Okay,
so
there you go.
You've got to have Kyle Larson and William Byron up at the top. And honestly, it's tough to choose between the two. William Byron won here last year. He led 66 laps. Kyle Larson won the 2 races in the seasons prior, leading 27 and 5 laps. I'm going to give the slight edge to William Byron just because he led more laps earlier, or I should say last season, from the front row. I think either one could win. Either one would be a valuable choice, but I would give Byron just a very slight edge over Kyle Larson. And I'm with you. I think favorite odds or co-favorite odds for a part-time driver as good as he is. Again, he can win. Absolutely. Would not be a surprise to me. But this is also a playoff race, and too many things can happen to go with Van Gisbergen as a favorite. If he were further down the order, absolutely would be a must-take. But given that, William Byron just gets a slight edge from me this week.
All right, let's see here. And now this next group, it's a long one between 9 and 12. So Elliott, here's another Hendrick driver, and Reddick. You got AJ. McDowell's 12-1. So is Kyle. So let's see about this group. Let's see. Let me go in alphabetical order with these guys. AJ has 3 wins, including a Watkins Glen win. For as far as road courses, he was 6th at both races this year, so that's pretty solid. Also, Christopher Bell, he's got a Roval win. 2nd at Coda, 9th at Sonoma this year. Kyle, 9th at Coda, 12th at Sonoma this year. He has 4 road course wins, including 2 at Watkins Glen. And then we've got Chase Elliott. He has 5 wins, including 2 at Watkins Glen. And this year, 16th at Coda, 4th at Sonoma. Ty Gibbs, of course, he's never won. So I think that just puts him out of this group as far as I'm concerned. He has a 3rd at Coda, a 37th at Sonoma, and it looks like he's only led 1 lap in his career in 10 road course races. So another reason that I definitely wouldn't pick him myself in this group. Let's see, we still have some more to go here. Let's take a look at McDowell. He's got the win at Indy, and this year he was 2nd at Sonoma. So let's keep that in mind. Did not fare well at Coda. Reddick, he has 2 wins, never at Watkins Glen. 2 top 10s this year, including 5th at Coda. And I think that is it. I think I went through everybody. So they're on this list right here. So as far as everybody there, who do you like? Who are you looking at?
I like Bell first. He's been at Watkins Glen 3 different times, finished 7th, 8th, and 3rd, and that 8th place finish came from the 38th starting position. So he's one that can work his way forward. His average at Watkins Glen is a little bit better than Tyler Reddick, who finished 10th, 7th, and 8th in his 3 races. Only led 2 laps, though, so Bell just a little bit better here at Watkins Glen. Michael McDowell would be interesting. I think he's good from a road course perspective. However, you got to keep in mind that Sonoma, where he had success, where you brought that up, very different from Watkins Glen. And there are times where a certain driver will perform well up Sonoma and not at Watkins Glen, or the opposite. And I think Michael McDowell, largely throughout his career, has not performed well at Watkins Glen. His best finish was a 6th, and in fact, that was his only top 10 from 14 career starts. He has led laps, so 14 and 17 laps the last 2 races that we were there. But just of the same odds, you got to go with a Christopher Bell, just a little bit of an edge over a Tyler Reddick. Both of those guys have been racing extremely well on road courses throughout the past couple of seasons in this new generation of car. But again, I'm going to give the edge a little bit more to Christopher Bell just because he's got that little bit of an edge in an average finish at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And then also, I just got to include Kyle Busch in there. So,
well, yeah, he almost goes without saying at this point, just because every single week he's racing extremely well. So no reason, not to take him. The only question mark, I mean, he led 2 laps last year, ended up finishing 14th. He's started inside the top 10 in the last 7 of the last 8 Watkins Glen starts. So assuming they can get their strategy right and he doesn't make any mistakes, no reason why he shouldn't be in store for another top 10 or a potential win again this weekend.
Okay, let's move down to the next groups here. Let's see. Let's go here. I guess we can go here. Let's talk about, let's see. Well, forget Truex. I mean, what is Juan Pablo Montoya doing on this list?
I forgot that Montoya was coming back.
I mean, really? 22-1? We haven't seen him in a NASCAR car in, what, 5 years?
I'm not sure he's been in any car for quite some time, so certainly not with any regularity.
All right.
It's going to be tough for him.
Let's see if any of these drivers... and again, this is when you get a little bit of a break on the odds, so let's see. Let's go to Hamlin. So Hamlin... not good this year in his 2 road course races, but his only win on a road course is Watkins Glen. So he does have that, and he is 22-1. Let's see Suarez coming off a really good result. Unfortunately, even though he has a Sonoma win, not good so far on the road courses this year, but he does have a little momentum, so maybe that is something to keep an eye on. Chastain is like Truex at this point. Why would you bet any of those guys? They're just not going well. Cindric does not have good results this year, but he's got the Indy win, and he knows he's good on road courses, and you're getting 35-1. So, you know what? Out of this whole group, I think I'm going to look at both Suarez and Cindric.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with you. I think Cindric certainly the best value of everybody that's been on that list, just because we know he's spectacular at the road courses. Hasn't been able to necessarily prove it at Watkins Glen. Nope. 13th and 16th, there's only 2 finishes here, but he qualified 8th and 17th and finished inside the top 20, aiming at top 15s there. So that's pretty good for Cindric, and you'd expect that at a road course. So therefore, I think he's the best value. Suarez, a little bit, hit or miss for me. So he's got some top 5s, 3 top 5s at Watkins Glen, but his other 3 finishes were all outside the top 15. And he's only led at Watkins Glen once, and that was the time that he finished 3rd, his first race at the track in 2017 series. I might consider Denny Hamlin, though. The odds aren't bad, and yeah, he's been struggling on the road courses this year, but if you look at last year, he started on pole, finished 2nd. He only led 3 laps, but prior to that, at Watkins Glen, if you throw 2022 out, in 2018, 19, and 21, he started 1st, 6th, and 6th, and finished 13th, 3rd, and 5th. So Hamlin is there. He just hasn't had the edge to be able to get up to the front at Watkins Glen to lead laps and win the race. So out of that group, I think Cindric is probably the best bet, best bargain for sure. But I wouldn't discount Hamlin either.
All right, let's now go down the list here. Let's see. Then we get to some other long shots. Only a few more that are really worth it. That's Bowman, Logano, and Blaney. But Logano's got his win back to back. Probably not going to happen as far as Bowman is concerned, and Blaney. So Bowman, he has a couple of runner-ups, and we have seen, based on those runner-ups and 6 top 5s, and over his career, that he can pop up. And look at what he did at Chicago. He was also 4th at Coda, and he's coming off a solid play, and he's 35-1. So Bowman is definitely a solid long shot choice. Blaney, meanwhile, and it's really amazing that Blaney, he came that close to having his car really fucked up, and they were able to patch it up nicely. And because it was a super speedway, that really worked to his advantage as well. The only other possible way that he'd have a shot if his car was like that is probably a short track. But fact is, they still were one of the best cars on Sunday. Gets his momentum back once the playoffs begin. 7th at Sonoma, 12th at Coda. Has got the Roval win, which is one of 5 career top 5s. And actually has a 50% rate as far as top 10s over his 28 race road course career. So I would definitely be looking at Bowman and Blaney as good long shots. I like where their numbers are. And let's start with those before we get to the 100-1s, and that includes Chase Briscoe. Unfortunately, Chase has never had a top 5 in 17 road course events.
Yeah, certainly of that bunch, I'm going to throw Joey Logano out because he's been up and down all season. He was very up last week. He's driving a Ford, which just has not performed on road courses. If I'm going to take a Ford, though, it's going to be Ryan Blaney, and it's going to be at Watkins Glen. I think Blaney's got some pretty good statistics here. 1, 2, 3, 4 finishes out of 7 that were 12th or better. He started 23rd here last year and finished 9th. Doesn't get out front and lead a lot of laps, probably because he's in a Ford and he's not the greatest road course racer, but that would be my choice out of the bunch. I wouldn't shy away from Logano from a fantasy perspective because it's all about peaking at the right time, and I think his team has shown speed throughout the season, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's got speed here at Watkins Glen. He's got some good finishes, 3rd and 10th in his last 2 starts at the track. Just that up and down every other week for me has been tough, and obviously going back to back with wins is really, really difficult in this series, so I don't know necessarily that Logano is going to be your bet to win. Alex Bowman, if this were any other road course, I'd probably take him. But at Watkins Glen, I agree with you. I think he's worth considering and might be a good long shot. But at Watkins Glen, he's going to have to pull one of those surprises out of his hat like he typically does.
You're right.
Just because his best finish here is 14th, which he did 3 times. He was 23rd last week.
Yeah, I agree. That's the one thing that's definitely not in his way. But what's good is that he's driving a Hendrick.
Exactly right. That's why you've got to consider him. Have him in your fantasy rosters for sure. Definitely take Alex Bowman in fantasy rosters this week.
Okay, and the other two, as far as these really super long shots you see here, just to note, you got Eric Jones, who does have 9 top 10s and 3 top 5s and 26 road course races. No top 15s this year, just 3 career laps led as well. Keselowski, meanwhile, no top 10s this year on the 2 road courses. Never won a race on a road course. That's 40 career races, 6 top 5s. So he's been okay, but he was. I think that was, again. I haven't looked at him lately, but I think most of that was a while ago. So out of this group, I don't really, tell you the truth, see anything that's worth it, even all the way down the line here, unless you tag someone in particular for some reason.
If you're really looking in that group, I'd probably go with Eric Jones. He's been consistently decent at Watkins Glen. 6 career starts, 4 of them have been top 10s, 2 of them have been top 5s. He was 10th in 2022, only finished 29th last year, qualified 31st in both of those. But yeah, Eric Jones, if you're really trying to go that far down, probably would be about as far as I would go.
Okay, so as far as picks, and don't forget to check out our starting lineup show. And look, they've done the worst possible thing the last 2 weeks. They've started the qualifying. They've ended qualifying right when college football's 12 o'clock games end. So, which my post-game show was at right after the 12 o'clock games. This week, no such issues. There is no post-game show. So I'll be good to go whenever the starting lineup is ready to come out after qualifying and practice on Saturday. So and it's going to be very important. So you want to check that out after what we said at the Open with 12 of the last 13 in the top 3 rows and 6 straight in the top 2 rows. Okay, so who do you have? Give me your top 3 picks.
Top pick is William Byron. My middle, I'll go with Cindric. And then my long shot, I'll go with Blaney.
Yeah, I like that. I think I might just say okay. That works for me.
Take Bell. He if I got a 4th, I would put Bell in there.
You know, since I would have taken, I tell you what, since I would have taken Byron and I don't have a favorite, I'm going to take Bell and Busch. So this way I'll take 2 in that area, and then I will go ahead and take Bowman.
Excellent.
All right. So there you go. Byron, Cindric, Blaney, Bell, Busch, and Bowman. All right. Now, let's take a look. We're going to switch on over. What's next week, by the way?
For NASCAR is Bristol.
Bristol. Excellent.
Yes.
Very, very good. Okay. Who won earlier this year?
Let's see.
Bristol. Hamlin.
Yes, he
Looks
was.
like he dominated.
Short track swing. Yes, he was winning at all the short tracks at that point.
Okay. So that's coming at the right time for Denny Hamlin. Just like it's coming at the right time for Kyle Larson this week. Keeping in mind, Kyle Larson, this is, again, the funny thing about Kyle Larson is that he's won once since Sonoma. So he's got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's got 1 win in his last 11 races. It feels weird, doesn't it? You would think that he's had like 6 wins this year.
Yeah. Very inconsistent, but winning frequently, I guess.
And that's what we might get this week. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it takes. I mean, he's got the 4 wins, leads the series. I mean, it's not a lot, but in a series where, you know, the playoff structure is just about winning, he's in contention every week.
Okay. Let's go ahead and knock out our NASCAR logos because we're going to talk about the F1 series. Where's my little F1 logo? There it is.
It's boring anyway.
What's that?
The logo, the F1 logo.
Well,
boring.
Yeah. I mean, at least again, I mean, can you come up with a race to race? I just don't understand why they don't do that. Like, what's the problem? Why don't they have why don't they allow these races to at each individual track? I mean, they're promoting it to their people and they should be proud of it. And I'd like to be able to put a nice little logo. So somebody must be preventing them from doing it because you would think somebody's waving their hand, go, can I create a logo for our race and have it go out to all the magazines and the internet? No logos. We do not allow that here at F1. Just type up the name of the race. That's it. And put F1 logo on there. That's all you can do.
They're very brand conscious in Formula One, and when I say brand conscious, I mean of the brand of Formula One. They have the copyrights locked down so tightly, more so than any other series that I've ever covered by far. So yeah, it's coming from the top, and they want to have F1 be the thing, not necessarily the race itself.
Let's take a look at the F1 futures. Let's see. We haven't looked at those in a couple of weeks. Let's see here. F1 futures. Max is minus 200.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lando is only 135.
Yeah, it's still gonna take a lot.
I mean, doesn't that still seem like a really good wager for Max?
Absolutely. He's looking at the points right now. 59, 50, 62 point lead, Max Verstappen over Lando Norris. And yeah, there are a lot of races to come. And yeah, Red Bull is certainly on the back foot, but Max Verstappen is still scoring points pretty much every single week. And if he's not on the podium, he's still, having the points haul that Lando Norris or whoever the winner is. Last week at Monza, it wasn't Lando Norris that won. Yet again, McLaren balked on their strategy, kind of shot themselves in the foot, which gave the victory to Leclerc. So McLaren continues to give up points. Lando Norris continues to give up points. And as long as Lando Norris is not winning every single week, Max Verstappen's lead is going to only shrink marginally, very slowly. So I still think Max Verstappen at minus 200, despite the fact that he's on the back foot and hasn't won since before the break, is still a good choice on the futures for the championship.
Okay, let's take a look this week. Now, Max won here, was it, they call it Baku, Azerbaijan? Baku. Yes. So he's got one win. Sergio's got 2 out of 3.
Yeah, don't count on that this weekend.
Yeah. And then Hamilton has a win back in 18. Yeah. So that's about it from the
Mercedes. News. It was interesting when I pulled up the history here. This is a track that's not been on the calendar for a long time. It's a long track. It's almost 4 miles long. It's been on for 7 races, and Red Bull and Mercedes are the only 2 manufacturers to have ever won at this track throughout those 7 races. And you've had a handful of different drivers, but it's always only been Mercedes or Red Bull. And the unique thing about Baku, now I did say a couple of weeks ago that this was one of the 2 weeks where you want to avoid Max Verstappen and Red Bull, because this is one of the tracks where they struggle at. And this track in particular is unique because the vast majority of that 4 miles is very tight and slow. It goes through the old city. There's that castle, very narrow, very hard to pass. But then they've got this massively long straight, which is like Monza, like we saw last week. So you've got to take the downforce off of the cars for that long straight, but you've got to be able to have a car that handles through the slow turns. And I don't think that Red Bull necessarily does well in that respect. So I think this week is one, given the track, and Singapore the following week are going to be 2 that you kind of want to discount Max Verstappen. And if you're looking at the odds, I think Las Vegas has got it right in terms of where they put at least Verstappen. I think I've got some grievances with where some of the other drivers are, but I think where they've got Verstappen is pretty much right on.
I mean, 7-1 for Max. Mm-hmm. He was 1-7 just a couple of months ago at some of these races. Crazy. So even at 7-1, and the way he's going, it's like, nah, it's just not a good time to take him then.
I think, with comparatively, so to your point, we're coming off of Verstappen earlier in the season being -4, -5, right? So if you're going to get somebody that you think has as good a chance to win as Max Verstappen did back then, who is Lando Norris today, and you're going to get Lando Norris at a positive number,
okay,
I would certainly think about taking that. I wouldn't discount Piastri. You get better odds with Piastri. Piastri is equally as good and equally as capable as winning as Norris. So I think those are your top 2 choices. We do know that Red Bull is going to likely struggle here. Not to say that Verstappen and Red Bull can pull something out of the hat and end up with a victory, but I think the logical combatant or peer to McLaren to fight for this week's win is going to be Mercedes. So I think George Russell and Lewis Hamilton should be in the picture. But if the odds are still the same from when I last looked at them, because of Ferrari's win last weekend, Charles Leclerc is getting a little bit of a boost, which I don't think is worthy or worth it for Baku. So I think Piastri and Norris are probably your top 2 choices. Maybe go with McLaren as the team, though. If you go with McLaren as the team, you're going to get negative odds there. But my second choice is probably going to end up being George Russell or Lewis Hamilton in Mercedes.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. You've got Leclerc. Now, maybe the reason why he's 4-1 now is he's coming in with 3 straight poles. Even though the 3 straight poles, he's only led 4 laps.
Exactly right.
That's not good.
And keep in mind, he's getting the bump because he won at Monza. But keep in mind, McLaren should have won that race. They made the call to go on a 2-stop strategy. Ferrari stuck true with their 1-stop strategy, and that gave Leclerc the ability to get in front and lead. I think McLaren, if they would have stayed on the 1-stop strategy, would have had the track position to be able to beat Leclerc and Ferrari. So I think people are reading maybe a little bit too much, or maybe a little bit too much optimism into Leclerc and Ferrari's chances this week. Not saying they're not going to be competitive, not saying that Leclerc can't put it on pole, because we always talk about Ferrari having 1 lap speed. The real difference is in the race and the race pace, and them being able to manage their tire over multiple stops. In Baku, it's going to be hard for them.
And what's interesting is that Lando Norris, Piastri, and Carlos Sainz has never led a lap at this racetrack. All 3 of them. That's crazy. So,
yeah, exactly right.
Let's go to Hamilton. These are the 2 that you say, these are some long shots that you want to put some money on. Hamilton 11, Russell there at 14. So Hamilton has the win at 18, as we mentioned. Hasn't led many laps over his career there. Matter of fact, after leading 30 laps the year before he won in 2017, he's only led 13 laps. He led 3 laps in his win in 2018, but his average finish is 5.4, so it's very strong there. And you're getting 11-1. As for Russell, he's had some, he's had a couple of good top 10s, which have come the last 2 years. Another driver that's never led a lap here, though, but you're getting 14-1, as opposed to some of those drivers that have never led a lap that are odds almost cut in half.
Exactly right.
Okay.
If you're not going to go with the McLaren, I would go for one of the long shot Mercedes. Probably pay attention to qualifying, because unless you really trim that car out for that long straight, it's all about how you manage your tires through that twisty part, which is the majority of the lap. And track position means a lot pretty much every week in Formula One. Baku, no different, certainly, with the tight majority of the track going through the old town.
And they have the team props, the race-winning car. McLaren is minus 150. Ferrari is plus 250. And Mercedes 6-1. There you go, Red Bull at 7-1. But again, that's pretty much just max every week now. So yeah, I mean, would you even wager on this?
I would go for Mercedes if you can't choose between Hamilton and Russell. That way, it cuts your odds in half, but you get both of them in the basket.
It's not bad.
So if you want that route, probably go with Mercedes. Otherwise, I might split my bet. If you're going to go with the favorites in McLaren, maybe split my bet a little bit between Piastri and Norris, put the majority on Norris, and then hedge a little bit with Piastri.
All right. Next up, next week, it's going to be Singapore.
Another spot that Red Bull has stuck to giant egg at. Yeah, they've never gotten their car to work right at this track. So it should be interesting the next couple of weeks for Red Bull.
And that's the first day of autumn. How about that?
Exactly right.
So,
and this season, crazy, this season goes into December now. The longest season in Formula One history was well into December, or at least into the beginning of it. Just
yeah,
crazy.
they're going to take, after Singapore, they take a break, their last long break, don't they, until Texas?
Yep. The race after Singapore is COTA. Yep, exactly right. And then they kind of do their, what is it? I don't want to Western Hemisphere swing with Mexico and Brazil in there in Las Vegas, and then they head to the Middle East to finish it out very beginning of December. So Qatar is the second to last race on December 1st, and then the last race of the year is Abu Dhabi, December 8th. But they've got 4 races in the Western Hemisphere after Singapore, 2 of which are in the United States.
Don't forget to check out when we post this, obviously when you're watching it, we'll have a link in the description. So that's when we'll probably put it together. I guess, what, Friday is it?
Yep, I'll try to have it by Friday. Should be able to even maybe get it for Thursday ahead of Friday practice, hopefully.
Okay. So, well, you'll know because you'll be watching the video. And then if you want to check out our NASCAR coverage, that'll be available. By the way, this show goes right on to our one of our channels, and then we will split them up either Thursday or Friday for F1, NASCAR as well at some point, probably tomorrow, and then our starting lineup show comes on Saturday for NASCAR. All right, CJ, excellent. We got that done pretty quickly. So
Sounds good.
yeah, it's
Thank
football
you.
season. So
Gotta be efficient with football season.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you again next week.